Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sincerity means purifying one's intentions solely for the sake of Allah, cleansing the heart from any desire to gain praise or recognition from humans. The essence of sincerity is a hidden internal state where deeds are performed only to seek the divine pleasure alone. In practice, sincerity demands alignment between outward and inward actions with God's commands, free from hypocrisy and ostentation. In depth, sincerity has levels where the highest level is to perform deeds purely out of love for Allah, without being overshadowed by the fear of hell's punishment or the pursuit of paradise's pleasures. At the level below it, sincerity is still considered valid when someone performs deeds hoping for the rewards of the afterlife or safety from torment, because that motivation still relies entirely on the promise and decree of the Creator, not creation. True sincerity will be highly visible when a person remains steadfast in doing good deeds, regardless of whether they are being praised by others or instead criticized and underestimated. To test the purity of the heart, the most evident sign of sincerity is the sameness of internal attitude when the good deed is known by many people, or when it is hidden without a single eye watching. The main enemies of this trait are diseases of the heart in the form of riyah, which is showing off deeds, and sum'ah, which is enjoying letting others hear of one's goodness in order to gain an honorable position in the eyes of fellow humans. Efforts to achieve sincerity must begin by hiding good deeds as much as possible, eroding dependence on human perception, and always praying for help so that the heart is strengthened in sincerity. A steadfast sincerity also requires a person to immediately forget the good deeds they have performed, in order to avoid the disease of ujub or self-pride that can erase rewards. The process of maintaining this sincerity lasts a lifetime, starting from straightening the intention before performing a deed, maintaining focus and devotion while performing it, to guarding the heart against talking about it after the deed is completed. The fruit of sincerity deeply rooted in the soul will give birth to extraordinary inner peace, protection from the deception of Satan, and a guarantee of salvation in the afterlife. When sincerity has landed perfectly within the heart, all forms of disappointment regarding worldly matters will vanish, because the soul's main focus is solely the judgment of the Creator who never disappoints his servants. A sincere person will never feel competitive or envious of others' spiritual achievements, but will instead feel joyful and grateful when seeing the teachings of religion upheld through anyone's hands. In the end, sincerity is not merely a theoretical concept to be memorized, but a ceaseless internal struggle to continuously erode human selfish ego in order to achieve ultimate closeness with Allah. True sincerity is also reflected in the willingness of the heart to accept all of Allah's decrees and destiny, whether they appear sweet or feel bitter, without any sense of protest in the chest. Every breath and movement of a sincere servant will hold the value of worship, because they have surrendered their entire life, death, and devotion solely to the ruler of the universe. The blessing of a sincere deed is not measured by the scale or grandeur of an action in the eyes of humans, but by the sincerity attached to that deed, even though outwardly it may look small and simple. Sincerity embedded in the soul will free a person from the burden of expectations towards others, so that they will never feel hurt when their goodness is not reciprocated or is even forgotten by humans. In a spiritual view, a deed performed without sincerity is like a body without a soul, which appears intact in the world but holds no weight and value whatsoever when weighed before the Creator. Therefore, maintaining the purity of intention is the hardest struggle for a servant, because the human heart is dynamic and always flips back and forth between the whispers of desire and divine guidance. Guiding a servant to Marifatullah, which is a deep recognition of Allah, where they are fully aware that even the power to do good deeds is a gift from Him, not because of their own greatness. This awareness completely erodes arrogance, so that the more good deeds are performed, the more submissive and destitute they feel before the majesty of the Creator. Thus, the entire sequence of worship and human life journey is inherently a school to continuously purify, maintain, and nurture the radiance of that sincerity until death comes. When all life activities have been enveloped by sincerity, the boundary between worldly and otherworldly matters will dissolve, because earning a living, having a family, and socializing also transform into a sacred field of worship. A soul that has reached this station will no longer be tossed about by the ebb and flow of worldly praise, for human praise is considered a trial, while human criticism is viewed as a means to expiate sins. Until the very last second of life, it is this sincerity that becomes the most valuable asset for a servant to return with a well-pleased and well-pleasing heart, entering the ranks of his chosen servants. The absence of self-interest in the heart makes a servant always feel content with the sufficiency that Allah provides, so that they are preserved from greed toward what is possessed by others. Every drop of sweat and tear that falls in the silence of life's struggles will transform into a beautiful witness, because all of it is perfectly recorded in the divine ledger that never fails. At the most ultimate level of soul purification, sincerity will give birth to the habit of always correcting one's own shortcomings, rather than being busy looking for faults and flaws in the worship of others. This purity of intention also becomes the strongest fortress protecting the intellect from the temptation of despair, because when an effort experiences failure in the eyes of the world, they know that the reward for their good intention remains intact with God. Every social interaction based on sincerity will radiate the energy of peace, so that the presence of a sincere person always brings coolness to their surrounding environment without them even realizing it. Finally, the journey of nurturing sincerity is a process of returning to the primordial state of human purity, a proof of the soul's pledge of loyalty that none has the right to be worshipped and aimed for except Allah, the one and only. The conclusion of this entire essence of sincerity is the true happiness when a servant can gaze upon the face of the Creator in the afterlife, which is the pinnacle of all rewards for the souls that have painstakingly maintained the purity of their hearts while in the world. Thus, this entire exposition is conveyed. May it be a beneficial reminder for us all, peace be upon you, and the mercy of Allah and His blessings.